So this little game called Hollow Knight Silksong came out a few days ago, and for a follow-up to a game known for its difficulty, I was surprised to see so much discourse online about how Silksong is too hard. So I took some time out of exploring Pharloom to research what exactly some Silksong players find difficult, and it seems to boil down to one of 5 things. Enemies take too many hits to kill, Hornet takes too much damage, you don't get enough rosaries to buy upgrades, bouncing off flowers in the Hunter's March is maddening, and runbacks to bosses take too long. Let's look at these critiques one by one. I'm gonna stick to Act 1 here to avoid spoilers, as many players aren't much further than that, and neither am I. Who knows, maybe Silksong becomes unbearably difficult in the 3rd act. Anyway, some players claim that enemies do take too many hits to kill, even with basic foes taking 4 to 6 hits, until you upgrade Hornet's Nail upon reaching Bellheart. I think this is a valid criticism. Once you learn the attack pattern of the pot-headed bugs in the deep docks, for instance, they're simply not worth killing. While exploring, I found myself flipping right past most enemies to get to where I was going, even in new areas. In somewhere like the Hunter's March, this goes double for the ant enemies. These armored ones can take a minute to kill. That said, the traps Hornet can equip help quite a lot here, and so too do her silky abilities. The Threadstorm ability, obtained fairly early on in particular, pretty much deletes groups of foes. It taught me to manage her silk gauge a bit more, causing me to play significantly different than I would other Metroidvanias and the original Hollow Knight, where I just brute force all enemies with some strong charm combinations. As such, I don't think these bulky enemies make Silksong much more difficult, and I'd argue most of them are quite fun to fight the first few times, except for those bloody ants. But I could see this making Act 1 feel more tedious for many. Hornet's growing moveset, especially after attaining the Swift Step ability, makes dashing about these hand-drawn and bug-infested environments a pleasure on their own. So I personally do not mind the bulkiness of foes, but I can very much understand how many might. So on to the next common gripe. Hornet takes too much damage. This is probably valid for many. I'm not someone to tell you to get good when struggling at a Souls-like or some other difficult genre. That said, I generally pick higher difficulties when the option presents itself, and I sometimes handicap myself when it doesn't. I played through the original Ori and the Blind Forest without upgrading Ori at all, for instance, and I don't use summons in Elden Ring. So if Silksong presented the option to take less damage through a difficulty setting, I wouldn't select it myself. I feel that would take away from how thoroughly I played Metroidvania, as I enjoy seeking out every single upgrade and item possible before moving on to the next boss. Some of my favorite moments in Silksong thus far have been eking out a win against a boss or challenge fight by getting just enough silk to heal, giving that adrenaline rush typically reserved for your Lady Marias and Millennia Blade of Maquilas. The only time I have become a little frustrated is the multiple challenge rooms against multiple enemies. Here it can become a bit too chaotic and easy for Hornet to lose all her health even when fully upgraded to that point in the game, especially against these fucking ants. Even then, I could have come back much later with the upgraded nail to make this easier. I also saw quite a few people griping that there weren't enough rosaries to purchase every map and item upgrade you come across because only certain enemies drop them, and therefore the economy is out of whack, at least in Act 1. I do not think this criticism is all that valid, as it's a matter of not engaging with the systems or not realizing that Team Cherry doesn't want you to buy everything as you come across it. You can and should spend some rosaries to make some rosary strings to keep them safe when entering a new area at one of the shops. But there's also a few areas baked in with silk-infested pilgrims to easily farm hundreds of rosaries in like 10 minutes if you really want to. I did put out a short at Gamer Guides detailing where to do this in Mossholm, netting 500 plus rosaries in like 15 minutes, and quicker than that if you have Swift Step unlocked, that I used to grab the simple key in the first shop in no time. Which brings us to our next and perhaps most valid criticism. Bouncing off flowers using Hornet's down air attack from our Hunter moveset is an unintuitive effort in frustration that I completely avoided by purchasing the aforementioned simple key to open this simple lock to find the Wanderer's moveset much earlier than you typically would, because it replaces the down air attack with a straightforward slash. If you want to see how I did that, take a peek at the Gamer Guides video I did detailing how to do so, link in the description. Anyway, with the Wanderer's moveset, I thought everyone just hated these ant warriors as much as I did. Imagine my surprise when most of the vehemence was for the little red bouncy blossoms. Like, I didn't even mention the Wanderer's moveset being great for Hunter's March in my Gamer Guides video because I simply didn't realize that was what people were struggling with at the time. Going back to try for myself with the Hunter crest equipped showed me I'd have raged with the rest of you. As such, I do have to question the design decision to give Hornet a short diagonal stab as her default down air attack, as getting the Wanderer's crest required grinding rosaries and completing a difficult jumping challenge to a hidden area. Anyway, that leaves us with the last common complaint, the runback 2 bosses and their difficulty. I haven't experienced anything too egregious yet, and as I've mentioned before, I find Hornet a lot of fun to control, so I don't mind too much when I have to flip and dash back to a boss. For me, the bosses haven't been all that hard either, requiring 4 or 5 tries for more difficult ones like Sister Splinter, though I did skip the Act 1 horror that is more winged by completing the Flea Caravan side quest first, so maybe that critter would have done me in. In fact, Team Cherry just announced as I was wrapping up this video that both Sister Splinter and Borwing are getting nerfs. Great timing, guys. While I have found challenge bouts against multiple enemies frustrating, thorough exploration beforehand always reveals a shortcut to a bench that isn't too far away. If you're struggling with a boss, however, I can see these runbacks adding to a growing sense of tedium and frustration. Having to explore every square centimeter before moving on to the next boss creates, for some, I imagine, excessive frustration, and I can't blame them for that. For me, it adds to the fun. Anyway, to sum it up, do I personally think Hollow Knight Silksong is too difficult? No, Act 1 was not, and so far Act 2 seems about the same. Is Silksong too difficult overall? I do think it's a little overtuned, yes, but not egregiously so. However, some aspects of it can compound how difficult it does feel by adding a layer of frustrating tedium to also overcome. Modern Souls-likes have begun to provide alternative ways to ease the difficulty, and I think Silksong needed something like this. A special amulet or crest that makes the game much less challenging maybe, or an easy difficulty you can swap to if it begins to feel like too much. I always have and always will champion different difficulty settings, as it takes nothing away from tryhards like myself and only means more people can enjoy these kinds of games. Hell, I'm still waiting for Pokemon to give us harder difficulty settings because I'm getting tired of heavily handicapping myself on my quests to take down the Elite Four. In short, I do think Silksong would benefit from some kind of frustration release valve for those that want it, but I do not think Silksong is too difficult for the type of game that it is. But what about you? How do you find Silksong's difficulty so far? Let me know in the comments. I love having little discussions down there and always do my best to respond to everyone. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Lowell and I'm a freelance game critic and guide writer. You may have read my words on websites like Nintendo Life and PC Games N, or watched some of the videos I've produced over at Gamer Guides. Either way, if you found this little video interesting, maybe like and subscribe. Thanks, bye!